The next thing I want to talk about is the importance of Christians and voting. Now, we are in election season, whether you're in the States, which is, I mean, the political world in the States is global. Like when there's an election in the US, the whole world knows about it. And I'm from Canada, and so we're actually going into election season ourselves. But I find US politics way more fascinating anyways. I saw this clip come up on X, and it was a Christian apologist, and he made the comment where he said, "This next election is super important, and Christians can make a difference," because apparently a survey was done that showed up to 41 million Christians were refusing to vote or who weren't going to vote. And I saw that and I'm like, "What?" It's like politics is one of these things. It's often looked at as a taboo subject and particularly is often avoided, and which I don't understand because politics is such a massive part of our world, yet so many churches stay away from talking about it. And the few churches that do kind of talk about politics from behind the pulpit are just blasted. And I don't understand that. You know, I think a subject that should be in appropriate times and in appropriate ways, but discussed nonetheless in the church, in a church gathering. Like I think it's like how is it how does it make sense that the whole world or that your entire country is talking about things and then that are important, that are significant, that have an effect on your church when it comes to policies and laws, but yet you're going to stay away from it? Shouldn't make its way into the church. To me, it's just a bizarre approach. But I saw that stat that 41 million weren't going to vote, and it's like in most elections, it often feels like there's really not one particular candidate that's far and above the best one. Oftentimes, it's feels like you're picking between two evils, trying to pick the best option of options that are all not good. But even in that kind of situation, to sit there and be a Christian and choose not to vote, I do not understand that thinking. Because even in amongst of picking the lesser of two evils, there's always a candidate that aligns more with traditional biblical values than the other. That's why you have different parties, whether it's Republican, Democrat, or in Canada you have the conservatives and you have the liberals. So you typically have there's a right and then there's a left. And so regardless of the particular individual running for a particular party and the flaws and things you don't like about them and that you disagree with, there's always a candidate that usually aligns more with biblical values, biblical ideas than the other. And even in this, with Trump against Harris, the whole world hates Trump. And they'll sit there and they'll post every miss, every mistake, everything he's done wrong. They'll post every situation where he looked like an idiot. They just blast that. But then when it comes to the other party, it's like everything is hush hush. And it's this job of trying to manipulate footage and edit footage to make them look smarter, sound smarter, try to wipe away their past, wipe away any mistakes they've done, wipe away all that and it's like it's this staged event. But it's like in spite of all of that, and you have Trump against Harris, there's one candidate that more aligns with conservative biblical values than the other. And if you're in America, or not even in America, and you don't see that, it's like, I don't know what to tell you. So to me, it's like you look at the policies, you look at what each candidate stands for. It's not about trying to vote a Christian. We need to vote someone who's a born again believer. Like the odds of that are slim to none. But it's like, what candidate supports things that are biblical? What's a massive cultural issue? Abortion, pro-life, pro-choice. That's a massive policy that a Christian should vote on. If you have a candidate that's pro-life, you have a candidate that's pro-choice, which one should you go for? And so it's like there's all of these issues, and then I see this stat where 41 million Christians are just going to refuse to vote. By not voting, you are voting. You're voting for the other person. I don't see how you could not care about the state of your country. Even in Canada, we got two candidates, our current prime minister, and then there's the guy running against him, conservative. Right now we have a liberal government, and now we got a conservative government who's flying at the polls right now. I can't imagine just at the next election, just not voting. Seeing what the current government has done over the last 8 years, and then just being like, it's not going to vote. It's like, to me, it's a God-given right. And I know you can go into the conspiracies and you can look at, does it even matter if I vote or not? You know, the votes, it's all rigged anyways. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if there's voter manipulation happening or whatever. But be that as it may, you still should take the ownership and responsibility to cast your vote, because I think it's a God-given right to do so. And to say like, oh, I'm just not going to do it because it doesn't matter. To me, that's not a good enough excuse or reason. 41 million, that does have the power to influence an election. If 41 million Christians voted the right way, how massive of an impact that would have. And so for them to not do that, I don't understand. If you're in the US right now and you're a Christian, vote. And vote the candidate that aligns more with the Bible, that aligns more with traditional biblical values. Doesn't matter if they're not a born again believer. Doesn't matter what their failures were in their past and in their life. That we're not voting a pastor. We're not voting a spiritual leader. You're voting a president who's going to instill policies and laws, is going to govern in a way that closely, or in a way that more readily aligns with the Bible. So please do that. If you're in Canada, same thing. I think it's important. If 41 million people decide to vote, that's going to have a massive difference. So vote.